Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy, Gsluke, here with our round 2 live stream for betting and props at the AMEX. Got you guys covered for all your exposure tomorrow. But first off, a look at the weather report, some stat averages out there from round 1. And because pin locations are not going to change for rounds 2 and 3, we're going to have a pretty good idea of how this golf course is going to play. So first and foremost, hopefully you're having a fantastic Thursday. We're ready to dive in all the action out there for tomorrow. And let's get this thing rocking with, first off, a look at some of those conditions, which for round number 1 were the easiest around the Nicklaus tournament course. Closely behind would be La Quinta, about 0.14 shots harder than what you had at Nicklaus. Then the stadium course was the real outlier of the three, playing a whole 0.23 strokes over par. Because of the renovations and the firm greens around the stadium course, we thought it would play a whole lot harder, but over par was even harder than what I was expecting. So the Nicklaus course, because it was untouched, was the easiest of the three. And after all the trees that were added to La Quinta, it played maybe just a hair harder than what you had there in 2024. So these are the averages that we have to work with. And as I mentioned, because they're not moving the pin locations, these are going to be extremely accurate for rounds 2 and 3. In terms of your forecast, it also looks pretty consistent for what we had there the first day, with the exception of this HRRR forecast, which has a little bit more wind than what we had for today, or even this GFS model, which at least early in the day is a little bit more blustery than what we had for round one. The rest of these, though, ECM, Icon, Medio Blue, NEM model, all of these models in the middle are calling for pretty much ideal conditions. So I would say that these averages should be very accurate for what we should expect over there for tomorrow, which is going to be extremely useful when we go through these prop boards. We're going to use the stat averages, which, by the way, unfortunately, this week, the stat averages are only from the stadium course. So at least for a third of the field, we'll have those to look at out there for today. The tee times for tomorrow, that's worth noting as well. There's a rotation between the three golf courses. The stadium guys, I believe, are going to actually, let me just go ahead and just tell you where all these guys are going. So stadium guy towards the top, trying to think of who that would be. Sun GM was at the stadium course. He'll be at La Quinta for tomorrow. The guys that were at La Quinta are going to the Nicklaus tournament course. And then the guys that are at the Nicklaus tournament course are going to the stadium course. So obviously make sure you're checking your tee times so that you know where every player is going to be. Because as you can see with the scoring averages, if they're playing on the stadium course as opposed to these other two, it's going to have a drastic impact on your props. There's about nearly a 2 birdie average difference at these bottom two courses compared to the top. And then even your bogey average, which is about 3 per round there at the stadium course, is sub 2 at these bottom two golf courses. So obviously that's going to be a huge factor out there in your process, combined with some of the shots gained metrics that we have for the guys at the stadium course. We're going to have some of these stats to go through. Let's go over here on Underdog and Prize Picks and hop on into some of this value out here for tomorrow. What's going on, David? What's going on? Alex says Luke is demand. I appreciate that. What's going on, Joseph? Don't pay any attention to the stadium course guides. Load up on the other two. Yeah, for Showdown, that's the strategy. You don't want any stadium guys out there for tomorrow. I do have a full live stream already up on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel where I go through all the Showdown details. But yeah, I do have all my projections done now over there for round 2 Showdown. And I'm only playing La Quinta and only playing guys over there at the Nicklaus tournament course. So wait till Sunday. And Sunday's going to be a whole lot of fun, right? It's playing over par already over there at the stadium course. And that's with the Pro-Am pins. The first 3 days, they've got these amateurs playing along with them. So they set up the golf course for a whole lot of scoring. So on Sunday, the Pro-Am's over after the first 3 days. I mean, it could play well over par. I mean, we'll have to see what the weather forecast looks like. But yeah, Sunday's going to be a whole lot of fun, like you foreshadowed. What's going on, Benny? Welcome on to the live stream. And of course, I will always clarify things. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to go ahead and let me know down in chat. But let's go through a few of these props. So I was looking at some unders for the Nicklaus course and then over there at La Quinta. And one that was really sticking out, at least when I was first going through the board, was this under on a Wyndham Clark strokes. You'd have to shoot -5 to cover this kind of line. And considering that the scoring average was -3.85, I think that is well within his range of outcomes. It's just over a shot gain to the field. And what's worth noting about I'm going to call each golf course a pod when I'm talking about the players that played on each golf course. If you break up each golf course into their pods, the pod that had the lowest talent level, in my opinion, would be the guys that played on the Nicklaus course for round number 1. If you take a look at the top end of the showdown pricing, a lot of the guys up there in that 9-10K range were on either La Quinta. That was guys like a Cantlay, Tony Finau. A lot of your top end guys were playing on La Quinta today. But the Nicklaus course, you had to go the whole way down to, I think, JT Poston, Cam Young were like the only guys up top that were really playing on the Nicklaus course. I know Sepp Straka was also on that course in our player poll core play this week, going pretty well so far. But yeah, a weak field. I think the lowest talent level out of the 3 pods, yet it played to the easiest scoring average. So now that you have the guys that are on La Quinta going over there, the Nicklaus, which by the way, the guys at La Quinta, in my opinion, are the best of all the pods. I think the scoring average, barring the wind, if it's going to be a low wind day, just like we had for round number 1, I could see the scoring average being -4 or better. So a Wyndham Clark over here having to shoot -5 is essentially just asking him to be 1 stroke better than the average, which at a weak field event like this, you've got some top level players that are playing. I mean, your Finaus, your Cantlays, your Justin Thomases, Sunjays, et cetera, et cetera. But outside of, I say, a 10, maybe 15 elite tier players, it falls off rather quickly. You've got some real slappies down there towards the bottom, some amateurs, some sponsor invites that don't really have any business being out here on tour. So somebody like Wyndham Clark, he probably even has to have an average day when you're just considering the actual PGA Tour players to go out there and cover that sort of line. So 67.5 strokes, I'm taking that under. If you want to compare it to some of the sportsbook lines that we have out there, I believe he's -130 for the under over here on Draftkings. So maybe a little bit of value if that's your sort of thing. Over here in Fanduel, I believe he was -120 towards the under. So let's see, we'll have to scroll down here. He's looks like -120 for the under at 67.5. Caesars, I guess we'll check that too. Might as well go through all of them over here. So where is good old Wyndham Clark? -125 over here on Caesars William Hill. So perhaps a little bit of line value there as well. What I'm going to bring up now are some of the birdie or better lines. So with the average being 5.35, at like Quinta and the Nicklaus tournament course, there could be some overs on birdies that we could consider. So I'm probably going to avoid some of the guys at the stadium course for now. I would argue that the stadium course would be ripe for fades if you're looking to go that direction. For example, Jason Duffner is playing the stadium course for tomorrow. He's at the birdie average from round number 1. It was 3.5 per round. So Duffner, a well below average player, might be a guy that you'd be looking at for an under, but I'm more so trying to point out guys like maybe a Eric Cole, maybe a Keith Mitchell that are elite tier birdie makers that you might want to take an over on over there on the Nicklaus course. And just to show you why I'd want to take these two in particular, a Keith Mitchell is number 2 in all the PGA Tour. If you take a look at last year, and then didn't mean to click his name there. That is, I do that all the time here on live stream. It's a mistake seemingly every time we bring this up. But if we go down here to Eric Cole, which I'll go ahead and just search him up here. I know if I click this, he's one of my recent searches. He was number 70 on the PGA Tour. If you take a look at all of 2024, was he ranked the year before that? The year before that, he's number 8 on the PGA Tour. So, and by the way, if you go back to 2024 and you take a look at the last 2-3 months, he's number 10. He's number top 15 on a lot of those rankings for the last month and a half of the season. So he's the kind of player that got better as the year went on. Last year was top 10 in that category. The kind of guy that usually outpaces your placement position. If you're looking at a fantasy score, Keith Mitchell, you could say a lot of the same about. So I guess if you were going to choose between the two, Eric Cole might be the one that you want to take out just because he's the lower ranked player. If you take a look at some of that recent form, but this kind of slip is really what I'm looking at out here for round number 2. So unfortunately, this is only 2.58x if you took it over here on Underdog. So maybe the better place to do it would be to potentially mix it in over here on this side. So we've got the Keith Mitchell prop. I think Wyndham's at the same number. So let's go ahead and just type in Clark and make our lives a little bit easier here. So yeah, he's also at 67.5 strokes. And unlike Underdog, this would give you 2.75x. So, you know, it's not a full 3x payout like you'd be, I guess, hoping for, like at some of these other sports, but it is a correlated slip with the over on birdies and the under on strokes and a better payout than what you're getting over there on Underdog. So this is my first lean. We're still going to do some line shopping before we end up deciding on a slip here, but with conditions looking pretty calm again, we know what golf courses are for the taking. I think Nicklaus is a little bit easier than what you have at La Quinta. That's kind of the idea with these two. They're both on the Nicklaus course. I think I mentioned that, but just in case I didn't, I'll mention that again. And they've also got slightly later tee times. So Wyndham Clark is going off towards the last half of tee times when it'll be a little bit warmer. Keith Mitchell here. And let me look at Eric Cole. Maybe Eric Cole's a better option just because his tee time might be later. So no, they're going off at about the same time. Eric Cole's about noon. Keith Mitchell's 11 minutes later out there with his tee time. Is there anyone else that we could take that's going off super late for a fade? And by the way, Jason Duffner is one of the first few guys off. I know that sounds like it would be a good thing, but it's not, especially when you're playing over there at the stadium course. Just to show you guys this, let me bring up Data Golf. They do a really good job at splitting up some of these waves to show you like what side of the draw played easier or harder. Let's look at this stuff on Data Golf because I showed this during the live stream over there on Ship It Nation. But if you split the stadium course by morning versus afternoon, the morning played 0.83 over par. The afternoon played nearly a third of a stroke under par. The morning guys played a lot harder because of how cold it was in the morning. It was sub 60 degrees for like the first 2 hours. And then if we take a look at the forecast, all of them over here for Friday, it's calling for a lot of the same. So I know before I was mentioning that, you know, maybe I was going to try and not take a fade on this kind of slip. But now that I see that Duffner is one of the first guys off out there for tomorrow, I might have to take him for an under 3.5 birdies. He's on the stadium course, if I hadn't mentioned that before, the hardest of all the golf courses. And the average, which includes a lot better players than what you have there with Jason Duffner, was only 3.5 per round. So that combines with the cold temperatures early, and we might be cooking there. And just to get an idea, let me see what side he starts on. So he starts on hole number 1. I was kind of hoping that he would start on 10 just so that he'd have to play hole number 11, which is a par 5. But it'd be a little bit cooler out when it's like only 40, 50 degrees. But he is starting on hole number 1. So he's not going to have a par 5 until I think pretty substantially into his round. Let me go ahead and just actually double check that so I can see when the first par 5 is on the front side. It's not until hole number 5. The reason why I was saying maybe starting on the back could be worse for a player is that in cold conditions, it's going to be really tough to reach a 600-yard par 5. So it's kind of what I was thinking when I was looking at the tee time sheet there. But this might be the slip to go with. And we could take this over here on Underdog for a 3.24x payout. So that's the added benefit of potentially taking a fade here, is that it takes our payout from 2.58x, which is something I wouldn't play, right, for a two-man slip, to over a 3x payout, which is pretty sweet. So in fact, out here for the stream slip, we're going to go ahead and take this one over there on Underdog. And I think we're going to cook up something else over there on Prize Picks. So this will just be slip number 1 of 2 that we probably end up entering here. Obviously, we've got to make sure we find something over there on Prize Picks, but I feel pretty confident that we can find something to add over there as well. So it's the under and Wyndham, needs to gain about a stroke to the field. By the way, I went through his profile from today. So if I go ahead and just kind of do that real quickly with you guys, Wyndham Clark hit 14 greens, which is pretty good for Wyndham. That means his approach play was somewhat good, but almost every time he missed the green, I mean, look at these bogeys, he ended up making bogey. So you can see hole number 1, missed the green, made a bogey. He missed 3, it was in the bunker, made a bogey. 10, same thing. 14, 15. He had a 3-putt out there, which is very rare for Wyndham Clark. And at hole number 5, he was greenside, couldn't get up and down from the bunker. Hole number 11, he was greenside. He couldn't get up and down from the bunker either. These are the kind of things that Wyndham Clark does in his sleep. So I know we don't have the shots gained metrics because he played at La Quinta, so we're a little bit in the dark. But what I would say is there's no chance that he plays that terribly with the short game. You're talking about one of the best short game players that we have on tour. So that was kind of the idea with Wyndham Clark there. And then we already went over the Jason Duffner one, right? Early tee time, one of the worst players that we have on the PGA Tour. In fact, I'll bring up his profile over here on Data Golf. Hopefully they don't mind. This is just the stat profile page over here. If they do, I guess they can let me know, and I won't do it in the future. But here's what Jason Duffner has done recently. Look at this. All this red over here to the right. In fact, if you want to find the last time that he's done anything good, gaining strokes to the field, you have to go back to the Fortinet Championship, and which, by the way, it's a new name now. It's the Procore Championship. That's how long ago you had to go back to find him gaining strokes, and it's back in September of 2023. So round number 1, he shot -2, way better than I thought he would. He still went well over his strokes line though, which is pretty sweet. But at 3.5 birdies, like he's the kind of guy who he's way worse than the PGA Tour average. So if that's going to be average at that course, if it's going to be maybe a little bit windier tomorrow and cold in the morning, you can see why I was taking that fade for the Duff Daddy, as some people would call him, which I got to say, one of the best nicknames in all of golf. Really bullish on Burns with his -4 on the Quinta. I agree. So let's go back to just like looking at the box score, which a lot of times can mislead you in other sports. But look at this for Sam Burns. No bogeys on the card. Couldn't get up and down at 6 to get a birdie. Couldn't get up and down at 13. He was on the ESPN Plus coverage, by the way. In fact, if you take a look at the sports book odds over here, I guess I'll just show you this in case you guys are like a really big plus EV better. But Sam Burns is -165 for his over, right? At 66.5 strokes. If you take a look at what we have over here in Underdog, you'll see that he's at that kind of number. So you may say like, oh, you'd want to take the over on that. Hell no, there's no chance in hell. I'm fading Sam Burns tomorrow because just like you said, I'm super bullish on him because he is not going to just not make those putts, not get those up and downs again. And I mean, obviously he could mix in a few more bogeys, but he's the sort of player that can make 8-9 birdies in a round. And I think this was about the floor that you're going to see from Sam Burns this week. So super easy Nicklaus course, easiest of the 3 setups in my opinion. I am right there with you. In fact, right, if we're not going to take the over, there's no chance I'm fading Sam Burns for tomorrow. Maybe we look for something to take for like a supportive stance play over here on Prize Picks. He's 0.5 higher in terms of his strokes line, so that could potentially be a spot to go out there and do it with. I'd rather him be at 67.5 like we have there with Wyndham Clark, but he's been playing a lot better than Wyndham Clark lately, and he also has a lot better course history around this event than what you have there with a Wyndham Clark. Clark hasn't really done anything around this event historically. Sam Burns has nearly won this multiple times. So 67.5 strokes, I have to agree with you, and this might be the spot for it. You really want to know what happened to him? Yeah, I'll show you the shots gained metrics. Dude, I'm just glad I didn't play him this week, but he played on the stadium course, so we have the shots gained metrics for it, and he lost 5.5 strokes approach. That was really it. I know he lost like 1.6 around the green, but that's not the biggest deal when you're losing nearly 6 strokes in one category. So yeah, it was the approach play. I'm glad I don't have him. Tool, you took down the $5 showdown today. That was nice. Good stuff, dude. It's always a good takedown. I think a pretty decent prize pool, if I remember as well. So good stuff. What's going on, Bill? What do I think about Burns over 66.5 strokes? I guess that answers that question for you, right? I showed you that it was plus EV value, but I disagree with it. I wouldn't bet it. So I'm not a slave to plus EV value. Some people are. They'll go out there, they'll see it on their odds board and say that I have to enter it. I try to take reason, try to take my projections and marry it up with plus EV value. It's kind of what we're getting in the Wyndham Clark, right? I know it's not as juiced as what you have in that other spot, but from the traditional analysis perspective, I feel a lot better about that Wyndham Clark prop. So yeah, hopefully it answers your question. I know some people just trust the sports books and that's what they do. If you're that kind of person, I can't argue against it then, right? If he's -165, but I'm not going to do it myself. Ben Griffin under 71 strokes. So I believe he's playing stadium course, but let me double check that because if not, that would be like the craziest misprice ever. But I'm almost certain that he's over there at stadium. So yeah, he's stadium. You'd have to gain about a stroke to the field to go out there and push. I'd rather play the unders that you have at those other golf courses because, and like in Wyndham Clark's case, right, he gains a stroke to the field and he covers his kind of line as opposed to, Ben Griffin has to go out there and tie it. Ben Griffin under 5.5 birdies, I could see that. I'm still getting over a little bit of sickness, so my bad there, guys. At least I muted my mic. I would say that's a decent lean because the average was only 5.35, and also because, he's a high birdie percentage player, undoubtedly, but he had a really good round 1. In round 2, he usually comes back down to earth a little bit. 2K to first, good stuff. He said he thought he had it with one other lineup, but then your Poston went nuts. Dude, yeah, his ending was crazy. I think he had an eagle towards the end of his round, a few birdies. Good stuff, dude. Jamari says, yeah, as of right now, your favorite play is Taylor, 5.5 birdies over. Couldn't argue against that with the form. And then you're looking at Spawn under 67 strokes. Spawn's rolling. Same thing with Nick Taylor, right, coming in off the win. If you're looking for form, guys, I see exactly what you're doing there. So I think, and that's something I like to do, by the way. if I want to correlate a slip, a lot of times it's with the weather. A lot of times it's like taking 2 unders on strokes or overs on birdies together. Sometimes it's going after guys that are in form and hoping they can keep it going. I don't want to say a ton of correlation to that, but you're at least playing the same idea on the slip. How do I feel about List at La Quinta? He gained over 2 strokes putting today, which is very unlikely to happen again. So I've got to say that Luke List, not my favorite play, if I'm going to be honest with you. Let's find a few props to enter here. So what we could do over here on Prize Picks is I'm not as worried about finding a fade, because if I was going to take like an under on burn strokes and then a fade, like I do it on Underdog, because over here on Underdog, you can get a boosted payout, right? If you take an over and an under. So over here on Prize Picks, we're probably just going to try and correlate this kind of slip. And I was looking at this over on Eric Cole before. I know I mentioned it. Also, this over on Keith Mitchell birdies. So we could go to one of those two to make this the 2.75x slip. As I mentioned before, if I was like choosing between them, I would probably take Keith Mitchell just because he ranked a little bit higher. But I want to see how Keith Mitchell played. I just haven't done a full deep dive quite yet on Keith Mitchell from today. So he shot -6. There's a clean card. Took advantage of the 2 par 5s on the front, also the 2 par 5s on the back. I don't want to say it's like an issue, but I guess the thing I was kind of hoping to see over here with Keith Mitchell was him, not taking advantage of the par 5s, right? Maybe him going out there and improving on that over there for round number 2. Let's look at Eric Cole. So I know Eric Cole at least didn't birdie 1 of the par 5s, but let's see how many of the 4 he didn't birdie. So I knew he didn't birdie 13. He did take care of 11, 5, and 6, though. So, I mean, if I had to choose between the two skill sets, Eric Cole did make 1 more birdie than Keith Mitchell today. And I would argue that he didn't take advantage of a lot of like the easy holes, like 7, 8 or some of the easier holes that you had out there. Like 14 is not a very difficult hole. 13's the ranked 15th hole right out there on the golf course. He wasn't able to take advantage of a birdie there. And by the way, that was despite hitting the green in 2. You can see he 3-putt out there with the par. Might have to be Keith. It might have to be Keith that we're taking out, is what I'm thinking here. Like, and that's despite Keith Mitchell being like elite of the elite when it comes to this category. It's just that when you take a look at the chance for a regression, I just feel like it's a little bit safer out there with an Eric Cole. I hate to use the word safe because nothing's ever safe when you're betting on PGA DFS or betting on golf in general, but that's where I'm siding for right now. So let me take Keith out of there for right now. Not 100% sure that this is what we're going to lock in, but let me see where they have their strokes lines. So Eric Cole's down there at 67.5. And same thing with Keith Mitchell. So he's also at that same line. Just to see if we have a line for comparison. I don't think we do on these sports books. So yeah, nothing over there on the Draftkings side. Let me see if they have it over here on Fanduel. Yeah, it doesn't look like they have anything posted for Eric Cole. Let me see if Keith has anything posted. So nothing there on the Fanduel side. And then over here in Draftkings, also no Keith Mitchell props. So no dice out there on a comparison. It kind of feels like they might be juiced towards the over if I was going to have them on books. The reason I say that is like if we take a look at a Tom Kim's playing La Quinta, so he's not at the Nicklaus course, but they played to almost the same scoring average. They have Tom Kim juiced towards the over. So, I know I said that I don't like make myself a slave to the plus EV value, right? I try to make that as clear as possible, but I think like the birdie lines might be a better way to go about it. So let me see what they have these birdie lines on over here at Caesars. So they don't have a ton of birdie lines posted. For example, like Wyndham Clark's at 6.5. Sam Burns is 6.5 and slightly juiced under. The only guys they have at 5.5, they have a Taylor and he's about even money there. Poston's playing the hard golf course, so maybe we don't look at that one. Yeah, not a lot that we have for comparison here, but we can see that Billy Horschel, who's playing Nicklaus course, is even money at 5.5 birdies. And Eric Cole and Keith Mitchell are better birdie makers than somebody like Billy Horschel. So, if we're getting at like worst about an even money prop, I probably feel good enough to go out there and take it first slip. So this is very likely what we're going to end up taking for that combination. I guess I'll go through some of these matchups just to make sure there's nothing glaring in terms of a misprice. And at least going through the first row or so, doesn't look like there's anything that stands out too much. And in fact, Like maybe the Sanjay versus Chan Kim one kind of stands out, but I don't think it's anything that's worth actually playing. So I think we're going to go with these two as the actual slip for the stream. I just feel a little bit better about Eric Cole not falling off a boat in terms of that regression back to the mean. And then Sam Burns here, he feels like a little bit of a sleeping giant tomorrow. So that's going to be the slip that we take for 2.75x. After we get off live stream here, I'm going to have to enter those slips for myself, but some decent value, ones I'll be posting over there on my Patreon page. Of course, guys, for all the slips that I'm taking for any given round, make sure to join my Patreon page. Link in the description of the video to go out there and check out the Patreon. $15 a month will give you access to every slip that I'm entering here on the live streams to try and give you guys some of the exposure that I'm giving to. I'll give you guys a little bit of a game plan over there for your exposure. But if you guys want to see every single slip I'm entering, the exact reasoning behind all of it as well, make sure to join the Patreon page. I'm always posting all these stat averages as soon as the round ends, a weather report as soon as it ends as well. So you guys have all of that to go out there and do your deep dives. And of course, all that exposure on each of these sites that I'm entering. So make sure to check out the Patreon page if you guys haven't already. Those are the 2 free slips that we're going to go with. And now that we've gone through that, let me see if there's any deep dives that you guys want to do down in chat. And then if not, we're going to go through some 3 balls and matchups kind of stuff. Let's see. The form thing didn't work for Euro when he played Terrell Hatton. Yeah, it doesn't always work. That's for sure. I know that from playing Showdown. That form doesn't always work, but it works a lot of the time. That's for sure. Ben Griffin, 4 birdies on Prize Picks. Not sure where you find him at 5.5. Yeah, I don't know who said 5.5, but if you can find him at 5.5, I'd probably take it. Maybe it's on Underdog. You're saying he's at 4 on Prize Picks. Is he 5.5 on Underdog? Because if he is, that's kind of crazy. I think that's a misprice, right? Because he's on the wrong golf course. So yeah, he's also at 4 over there. I think he may have said the wrong name. I'm assuming it was just a typo that he gave. They tried today with how bad they played. You're telling me about Chin Kim birdie making. Dude, Chin Kim, he's an absolute wild man. I mean, he's a top 25 birdie maker on the PGA Tour. So I kind of get why he's matched up against Sungjae Im. It's just that I don't think Sungjae Im's going to have a bad day. Like after what he did round number 1, I think he's going to have a much better round 2. And Chan Kim, he looked lost too, right? So if they're both lost, like give me Sungjae Im over Chan Kim. But Chan Kim, you can't sleep on him, that's for sure. EVR over 5.5 birdies. I like his stat profile. So just to show you how he played round 1, he was on the stadium course. So we have the shots gained metrics to reference. He gained about 2.5 strokes in approach and lost 1.5 strokes with the putter. So we could see a little bit of positive regression over there with the flat stick. He continued to hit it like he did for round 1, about 3 strokes ball striking out there Thursday, and he could have himself a round 2. So I think at 5.5 birdies, right, that's just over the field average. That would be a decent lean. But you might even want to consider a strokes line out there for an Erik van Rooyen just to check. He's at 68.5 over here in Underdog, which I didn't realize that's a tasty little line right there. So let me see if there's a line on these books. I'm assuming there's not, right? Over there at 68.5 strokes. What you're asking Erik van Rooyen to do, to go over there and cover that sort of line, and just to check, let me make sure. So he's playing on the La Quinta course. So he's not at the Nicklaus course, but he is at the second easiest over there at La Quinta. Yeah, he essentially has to go out there and gain like half a stroke to the field. He's going to go over there and cover a 68.5 line. I think that's the way I'd go about it, is I'd take something like that. And in fact, after we get off live stream here, there's a good chance that I end up entering a slip that has that under on stroke. So stay tuned over there. What I'm going to do now is go through some of these matchups, and usually I like to lean into the shots gained metrics when we have these kind of matchups. So we're not going to have as much data as what I'm hoping for. Over here in Bet the Number, by the way, they have this really cool tool that they have for matchups where you can look at a lot of the live stats for an event. But because we're not going to have a lot of those live stats until, 2-3 rounds into this event, the Bet the Number tool we'll probably end up using for rounds 3 and 4. But for this model right out here for round number 2, we're probably just going to have to take a look at some of the shots gained metrics. So in terms of 3 balls, let's perhaps look at some of the guys playing on La Quinta. They were playing at the stadium course out there from round number 1. So I'm going to sort this by ball striking, and I want to try and take some of these guys that gained a bunch ball striking and that lost out there at the flat stick. So an Erik van Rooyen could be one of those players. So where's the 3 balls? I guess it's 2 balls. Sorry, I forgot. There's only 2 sums over there for this kind of format. Let me see who Erik van Rooyen's going against. So he's going against Lucas Glover. and he's the slight underdog, it looks like, out there against gloves. He's minus 105 there. Let me see what he is over here, though. Okay, there's let's do the two balls so we can find the Erik van Rooyen versus Lucas Glover bet. So he's minus 110 over here on the Fanduel side. So yeah, this minus 105 over here against Lucas Glover, I might consider betting because Lucas Glover looked absolutely lost today. So if you take a look at his round one performance, he lost on approach, lost around the green. In fact, his only positive categories were off the tee and then with the putter, which is a huge red flag considering how inconsistent he is on the greens. So yeah, they're at a minus 105. Let me see what I can get over here on Hard Rock Bet. That could be like a bet for sure. I'm not sure if Hard Rock Bet's going to have all of their matchups posted quite yet. If they don't, I guess I'll have to see what we end up getting for a line later. But even minus 105, like we have there in Draftkings, is something I would probably bet. So in 1 second here, guys, I'm over here on my phone seeing what I have for a line. And it doesn't look like they have them posted quite yet. So I'm going to have to wait till the morning to go out there and bet that sort of thing. But yeah, if I can get like minus 105 or God forbid plus 100 out there in Erik van Rooyen, that could be a spot to go out there and mix in. Let's find another one though. So that's just one example of the kind of matchups that I like to go and try and target. Next one, a Kevin Yu. Let's try and find somebody who lost strokes putting. So I guess a Vincent Norman would qualify, but he's usually not a very good putter. Let's look at Tom Kim. So Tom Kim, you can see over here, gained off the tee, wasn't that great on approach, but lost nearly 3 strokes out there with the putter. So if we can find a decent matchup for Tom Kim, like this could also be a spot for a little bit of positive regression. So he's the slate favorite against Nick Taylor. And I would argue, like, the form of Nick Taylor is great, but he's probably going to come back down to earth at some point, right? I think everyone would agree with that. No one would be that surprised if he had a little bit of like, a low birdie round. Like maybe he still shoots -3, -4, but it's only like 3 or 4 birdies that he's making on the day. Tom Kim, he's primed for a super low one. He's got the shots gained metrics, right? If he's even a neutral putter, he's going to go super low, let alone if he goes out there and gains strokes on these POA overseeded greens. So let me see what Tom Kim is over here on the Fanduel side. So he's minus 150. He's actually even worse odds over here on the Fanduel side. So once again, if I get close to this minus 145, ideally probably closer to minus 140 or better odds on this kind of 2-ball matchup, this is probably what I'd be entering over here on this side of things. So let's find a few more that would make sense. So we got the Tom Kim one with some putting regression. I guess a Burgoon. Yeah, we're not going to bet on that scrub. A Harris English could be one. Harris English usually a lot better than what we saw with the flat stick today. So let's see who English is going against. Harry English is going against Bazane-Hoot. Bazane-Hoot had a really bad round number 1. So just to show you guys how Bazane-Hoot played today, he lost off the tee. He lost on approach. If we take a look at his stat profile too, which by the way, this is sponsored by Bet the Number. Code Gsluke over there will give you a discount off any membership. But I mean, yeah, we just take a look at his profile here. He lost nearly 7 strokes off the tee last week. 2 weeks ago at the Century, and then he lost a stroke on approach. It doesn't look like it's going very well for Bazane-Hoot. And I think he just changed clubs as well over there to a PXG sponsor. So maybe that has something to do with the issue. This Harris English also looks like a pretty good prop to go out there and take. And then there was one other I wanted to look at. I saw it just below Bazane-Hoot. So let me go ahead and sort this one more time. Who else? And Patton Kazire. So let me see who Kazire is going against. Do they not have a Kazire prop up? Oh, that would kind of suck. Because Patton has a really good stat profile. So yeah, it doesn't look like they have anything over there on DraftKings at least. Let me see if they have anything over here on, yes, nothing over here on the Fanduel side either. Patton Kazire could have been a play though. I have a feeling his guy ended up withdrawing or something like that. Whoever he was playing with, maybe that's why he doesn't end up having a matchup. But these ones we ended up taking, Van Rooyen, Tom Kim, Harris English, these are the kind of plays that I play for a round 2 prop bet. They've got a lot of positive regression that could go out there and help them. And, I know we talked about these over here on 2 balls and 3 balls, but over here on the prop side of things, like the Erik van Rooyen bet could very well be something I go out there and mix in. A Tom Kim under and strokes might be half to something that I take a look at. And let me see what he is over here, actually over here in Prize Picks. So he's at 67.5 strokes. And then what is he over here on this slate? So he's also just at the same number. I was looking for a birdie line, or at least was hoping to see one over there between the two sites. Like maybe you look for him over there on the prop side as well. So like speaking of, do we have an English prop? No English, which, yeah, I didn't remember seeing them. So that's kind of a bummer that we don't have a line there to compare to. But like Eric Van Rooyen, a perfect example of where you can take advantage of that as well. So those are a few different bets I'd be considering out there for round number 2. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and hop on out of here. Killer Keith, another one of those great nicknames in golf. And then Mac Hughes, good push equity for the under 68 strokes. I would say so. He really fits this style of golf. Really good putter on the POA overseed. So I bet him outright this week. Obviously, think very highly of him at this sort of event. Yeah, no pushback for me. That would be a pretty decent bet. That's all I've got out there for the round 2 live stream, guys. Again, a little bit late over here. Got to hit the sack here in a little bit. But best of luck over there with all of your round 2 exposure. We're doing the same thing for rounds 3 and 4. So make sure to stop on by for that after I do the showdown live streams. Showdown stream's going to be over there on Ship It, just like tonight. And then the prop stream, the betting live streams, going to be over here on the Gsluke DFS channel. So subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't already. Also over there on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. Smash the like button if you haven't already as well. And use code Gsluke over there on the Bet the Number channel. If you guys haven't already signed up for a Bet the Number membership for a discount off any membership there. We're going to be using that matchup tool a lot more in the next live stream when we get a little bit more data. The reason why I wasn't looking at it for right now is that we only had it for a third of the field, and I want to be able to compare a little bit more when it comes to the stats, right? An 18-hole sample isn't quite enough for just looking at birdie numbers. So when we get it to closer to 36 holes, or after the 54 holes when we have the cut, it's going to be a little bit more useful then. So stay tuned for all of that throughout the weekends, but best of luck, as I mentioned before, and let's get it, guys.